The soft hum of the elevator filled the silence around a man adorned in a black and gold uniform. Metals clinked with each subtle movement on his chest. The uniform was pristine and in perfect condition, its design elegant yet maintaining a militaristic look. The man looked down at a small datapad, his eyes tracing over the words. The Throds push back to home system. War soon to end. His fingers nervously tapped against the side of the datapad. His mind tossed and turned as the numbers on the small screen near the doors slowed down as he began to reach his destination. The elevator finally reached its destination and came to a soft halt. The doors slowly opened with a hiss to reveal a fully stocked bridge. A few of the staff were working away on their consoles to keep the ship active and ready, but the majority stood in a half circle around a single man standing in front of a large hologram. "Welcome, brother," the man at the center said. His uniform contrasted with the man in the elevator by function. It was a bit worn and a little loose. There were no medals, and only a name tape across his chest with Martinez inscribed onto it. The man at the center looked much younger than the man in the elevator. The man in the elevator took a few steps forward. The entire bridge stopped working and watched him. Soft murmurs traded between bridge officers. Many have only dreamed of seeing the hero of Pyrite. The man at the center brought his hands together to clap, the rest of the bridge joining. A few camera drones shifted their position to get the perfect angle for the rest of the awaiting galaxy. "I am honored to have you here for such an event. I hope the travel wasn't too rough on the old hero," the Admiral chuckled to himself. The view of an entire planet displayed through the clear panels behind him. It was magnificent in size and beauty, swirls of orange, green, and blue spread across its surface like a marble. "I came here as soon as I heard," the old hero replied, a small smile creeping at the edge of his lips. He continued down a clearing towards his younger brother. "Well, let's not have them wait any longer. Then shall we?" The two men shook hands and brought each other into a small hug, though it was noticeable that the older one held tighter. His eyes closed and a bit of relief washed over his face. The Admiral turned around to the displayed hologram, activating a few controls. The entire ship vibrated softly, sounds of a powering mechanism heard over the usual sounds of the ship. The Admiral's posture straightened as he faced the bridge crew. His hands clasped behind his back, knuckles white against the fabric of his worn uniform. 20 years ago, I watched from the medical bay as New Eden burned. Our colonies, our people, scattered across space like leaves in a storm. My wife and daughter were on Proxima Beta when the Throds glassed it. No warnings, no demands, just death from above. He paced across the bridge, boots clicking against the metal floor. We lost millions in those first months. Earth herself nearly fell. But humanity? A bitter smile crossed his face. We're stubborn. We're survivors. When they expected us to break, we fought back harder. The old hero's eyes glistened as he watched his younger brother speak. The memories of a bloody battlefield, creeping their way between every pause, the Admiral continued, voice growing stronger. Every step back to this moment cost us dearly. The battles at Mars, Jupiter's moons, the Kuiper Belt. But we pushed them back, inch by bloody inch, until we found their home. He turned to face the weapons station. "Lieutenant, transfer primary weapons control to my station." "Aye, sir. Transferring control of the Thanatos cannon to command." The lieutenant's fingers danced across his console. A soft chime indicated the transfer was complete. "This is for New Eden, for Proxima Beta, for Earth, for everyone we lost getting here," the Admiral said, his hand approaching the newly activated controls. "No," the old war hero said. Some audible gasps came from around the bridge. The Admiral turned to his older brother, his eyes meeting old and tired ones. "This isn't right, Joe," the hero said, his fingers still tapping on the datapad nervously. "What? Do you mean David?" the Admiral said, a tinge of frustration arising in his tone. "We've won. They have surrendered. We have a chance to show mercy," the hero said, his voice carrying a weight of exhaustion and hope. "Mercy? Did they show mercy to New Eden? For Mom, Lisa, and Noelle?" "They burned them," the Admiral said, his anger growing, his knuckles white as they gripped the command console. "Look, David." The hero placed his hand onto his younger brother's shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles, the trembling of barely contained rage. "I'm sorry about Lisa and Noel. I am. But what you are about to do? It's tantamount to genocide. Billions will die." The hero said, his eyes meeting his younger brother's, his face completely giving way to guilt and sadness, the lines around his eyes deepening with each word. "They plan to destroy Earth." The admiral pushed his brother's hand away, the motion violent and sharp, causing several bridge officers to flinch at their stations. The memory of the old hero condemning hundreds of ships to death by ramming Throd battleships rushed through like a tsunami of pain. A sharp pain rose in his head. His eyes stayed focused as he continued. "But they didn't. You have the ability to show the rest of the galaxy we aren't like them. Don't you see the hypocrisy of what we are about to do now?" The hero's voice carried a plea, his weathered hands spread open. "We lost everything because of them." The admiral slammed his fist against the console. "Every colony, every outpost, gone. You weren't there when the reports came in, when the casualty list grew longer each day, the screams echoing across the melted colony picked up by still-functioning camera systems. I was on the front lines, Joe. I saw what they did. But I also saw what we became." The hero's voice cracked. "The orbital bombardments of their civilian centers, the bioweapons we used on their food supplies. Where does it end? It ends here, with them." The admiral's fingers hovered over the controls. One push and their homeworld burns like they sought to burn ours. And their children, their hospitals, their schools. The hero stepped closer. "We'll become exactly what we fought against. The monsters who destroy worlds without mercy. They deserve..." "What they deserve isn't the point anymore." The hero cut in. "This is about who we are, what humanity stands for. If we glass their planet, we're no better than they were 20 years ago. There are reports of rebellion. They are fighting back against their own regime. There are some that don't agree." The admiral's hand trembled over the firing sequence. "They took everything from me. Then be better than them. Show them why humanity survived, not through revenge, but through mercy." The admiral started the firing sequence. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge as the weapon powered up. Bridge officers watched in tense silence. The hero grabbed his brother's wrist. "Joe, please, let go." The admiral tried to wrench free. "Mom wouldn't want this. Lisa wouldn't want this." The hero tightened his grip. They'd want their deaths to mean something more than endless revenge. The admiral's finger hovered millimeters from the final command. His younger brother's face contorted with decades of pain and rage. But the hero held firm, weathered hands locked around his brother's wrist like steel cables. "Choose who we become, Joe. Right here. Right now," the hero said. The admiral yanked his arm free and lunged for the controls. The hero tackled him both, men crashing into the command console. Alarms were activating as they grappled across the deck. "Security!" an officer shouted. Armed guards rushed forward, then froze, weapons half raised as the brothers fought. "Stand down!" One guard blocked another's path. His look and eyes communicated a more complex message to the guards. They complied and lowered their weapons. The hero locked his brother in a hold. "Think about what you're doing," the admiral drove. An elbow into his ribs. "I've thought about nothing else for 20 years. The admiral broke free and swung wildly, his fist connecting with his brother's jaw. The hero staggered back, tasting copper. Blood dripped onto his pristine uniform. "You're blinded by hate, Joe." The hero wiped his mouth. "Look what it's done. To you," the admiral charged, driving his shoulder into his brother's stomach. They crashed into a navigation console. Sparks showered the deck as screens cracked under their weight. Two security teams burst through the bridge doors, rifles raised. The lead guard's finger tensed on the trigger, then relaxed. He lowered his weapon once he heard the old hero speak. "Sir, we shoot..." "Just don't," the lead guard said. The brothers grappled across the command deck. The hero's experience showed. He redirected his younger brother's rage, using it against him. But the Admiral's fury gave him strength. The Admiral slammed his brother against the main viewport. Stars blurred behind the hero's head as it cracked against the reinforced glass. Noel deserves vengeance. The Admiral's hands wrapped around his brother's throat. The hero broke the grip, countering with a swift strike to the solar plexus. And what about the Throds who helped us? The defectors who gave us their shield frequencies? The civilians who hit our refugees? They traded blows across the command deck. Each punch carried decades of pain, of loss, of diverging paths taken after that first devastating attack. Necessary casualties for justice. The Admiral caught a punch, twisting his brother's arm. And justice demands balance. Justice? The hero swept his brother's legs, sending them both crashing down. Or retaliation. There's a difference, Joe. The Admiral rolled, pinning his older brother. You weren't there when Lisa died. When Noelle screamed for help over the comms as she burned, I lost them too. The hero bucked, throwing the Admiral off. But this isn't the answer. The Admiral recovered faster, younger, driven by rage. He caught his brother in a headlock, from behind. The hero struggled, fingers clawing at the iron grip around his neck. Joe, please. The hero's voice came out strangled. Don't lose. The Admiral's grip tightened, the strain in his voice turning it into a near whisper. Your humanity. The Admiral's arms tensed, one sharp twist. A crack echoed across the silent bridge. The hero's body went limp. The Admiral let go. Watched. His brother crumpled to the deck. The pristine uniform now wrinkled, metals scattered across the floor. The Admiral stared at his hands. They trembled. The rage drained away, leaving only horror at what he'd done. David? His voice cracked. He fell to his knees beside his brother's body. Oh God. David? But there was no answer. Only the soft hum of the ship's engines and the distant glitter of stars beyond the viewport. The Admiral belted out an uncontrolled scream filled with both rage and sadness. The feeling of loss returned to him from that fateful day. His red eyes turned to focus back on what used to be a functional display, now a control panel covered in broken-tempered glass, blood, and sparks. Weapons! Fire! He yelled out. But nothing happened. They surrendered, sir? The weapons officer asked. Fire the cannon! The Admiral stood up, his rage now fixated on the young officer. The rules of galactic warfare dictate... The first officer was quickly interrupted by a solid punch across the face, his firearm promptly removed from his holster. The Admiral pointed the sidearm at the weapons officer, who took a few steps. Back? Fuck the rules. Burn that planet, the Admiral said in a low tone. The sound of charged rifles echoed through the otherwise silent room. All of the guards and officers pointed their weapons at him in defiance. You are under arrest for the death of David Martinez, otherwise known as the hero of Pyrite. The lead security officer said, his own rifle raised. You are hereby removed from your post as captain of this ship and admiral of the 4th Fleet. The first officer followed up after wiping away his mouth. The Admiral's vision began to fog from the tears forming, his anger and rage giving way to sadness and regret. The sound of the sidearm he once held reverberated through the bridge from its impact with the ground, his arms immediately being pulled behind him. I'm sorry, the Admiral said to his now deceased brother as he was taken away. Enjoy next amazing story. On the new year of 2100, just as humanity celebrated another year of prosperity, the diverse gods of the old and new convened together for a celestial council. That day, within 4 hours of deliberation, the gods decided humanity's fate. The gods declared war on man. The first battle and the first blood spilled occurred in the same room where the war was decided. The gods, demigods, and titans who disagreed with the decision and protested it were the first to fall due to concerns of rebellion. Few survived to warn mankind's many leaders. It was the first time the Celestials had directly contacted public, figures of the mortal realm in several millennia. It didn't take long for mankind to believe these figures due to the initial strikes cast from the heavens by their newfound enemies. These are the stories of this violent and bloody war. Both man and God would fall, cities would burn, and bodies would pile atop mountains. Humanity has a name for this era of betrayal, blood, and deicide: the Pantheon Wars. Structure of a 3-story building cracked under the pressure placed on its only 2 remaining support pillars, causing it to break down under its own weight and crumble in a terrible display of dust and debris into the streets beside it. The cries of men, women, and children saturated the air, while the wounded were left to fend for themselves. A lone behemoth of a figure walked down the bloodied and war-torn streets of the small suburban neighborhood, a large axe dragging against the asphalt behind him, cutting a large wound into the ground. Even with a small car in front of him, his gait remained unchanged. His body pushed the car to the side as if he were a moving block of steel. A sickening grin plastered on his face, he approached a crawling man with heavily injured legs. With a simple step, the man's head exploded under the figure's heel. He then spotted 3 humans beside him, and with lightning speed, he launched his axe in a horizontal path toward them, easily separating their upper halves from their lower halves. The axe's trajectory remained unwavering in its path, cutting through the building beside them just as easily before turning around at a 180-degree angle like a boomerang back to the figure's hand. "More? Give me more!" he exclaimed in a long dead language before kicking another small car aside. The figure looked up into the sky after hearing the distant boom of the sound barrier being broken by something approaching fast. He lowered himself to a woman in pain and easily broke her neck with one hand. He locked eyes with hers as she slowly died and spoke as if she could still hear him. "Ereshkigal." For a moment, nothing happened, but suddenly the woman's tearful eyes spun backward into her head, becoming consumed with a green, sickly aura. "Yes," she said in a monotone voice, her body still limp. "The harvest of Pranam is nearly done. Tell them to send me to battle next. I am famished," the figure said, while glancing at the 8 incoming objects, smoke and flames leaving a trail of their descent. "Once you're done, you are to return to Zeus." The eyes twitched within the lifeless body. "Zeus is not Odin. I will go where I please." The figure launched the green-eyed woman into the side of a ranch house. Just as he did, the 8 pods in transit impacted the ground around him. He tightened his grip around the axe's handle as the cloud of dust grew thicker around him. The glow of 8 red lights shone through the dense layer of smog in front of him. "You miss." All 8 pod lights flashed green, followed by 8 hatches being launched toward the figure. He easily took the brunt of 2 of the hatches, hitting him while dispatching the rest with his Asgardian axe. The wind from the hatches and axe moving through the air easily dissipated the dust around him, revealing the 8 standing 7-foot-tall, massive men in front of him. Each man was distinct in beard length and color, each with the symbol of a serpent wrapped around a broken Mjolnir burned into their chests. The only armor they wore was black leggings with reinforced titanium around their thighs. Their chests were bare, but their heads donned distinct black helmets closely mimicking Germunbu helmets. They pulled their different weapons from their magnetic holds in each drop pod. The figure instantly locked his eyes on the tattoo of one of the 8 men. He quickly threw his Asgardian battle axe at the man's chest. The 7-foot monster of a man quickly shifted to his side and used every bit of his strength to deflect the axe out and away from his body with his buckler. The impact between both metals was ear-splitting, both reverberating a blue hue upon impact before launching the man back into his drop pod, his body smashing into it with a sickening thud. The axe had been deflected to the side, soaring through the air before turning 180 degrees and returning toward the figure. But before it could, one of the 7 remaining men quickly launched his javelin at the figure with extreme speed and accuracy. Instead of choosing to dodge the javelin, he threw his shoulder into it. The javelin's tip pierced his flesh and caused him to stagger slightly from the impact. His face lit up with a menacing glee. "That hurt. You can hurt me? I." Right hook from one of his assailants landed across the figure's face, spittle and blood spilling onto the floor below. He immediately replied with a solid front kick into the solar plexus of the man, launching him several meters back into the pod he arrived in. A blue and black blade was brought down at the figure's side from one of the men. His speed allowed him to catch the blade as it came down upon him. The blade ate away at his flesh as he held the sharpened edge. His other arm reached out and grabbed the wrist of the attacking man, gripping and launching him into the car he had pushed aside earlier, the impact enough to shift the 2-ton car over a meter or two. Both injuries began to burn unnaturally, which gave the figure pause. He lowered himself and launched a few yards away from the rest of the attacking men. Looking down at his injured hand, he inspected the very little blue, glittery material embedded in his skin. "Interesting," he said before extending his arm out to catch the swinging axe approaching him. He threw the axe into the ground below him and then pulled out the javelin still deep in his shoulder. "How did you pests get such weapons?" he asked. The remaining 6 men stood 5 yards from him, still carrying the different assortments of weapons they brought with them to this battle. The men marched forward in eerie silence, their footsteps synchronized as they surrounded Magni. A smirk stretched across his blood-spattered face. 6 mortals against the son of Thor? Your bravery will make your deaths more glorious, Magni bellowed, yanking his axe from the ground. The warriors moved with uncanny precision. 2 flanked left, 2 right, while 2 approached head-on. Magni laughed and charged the pair directly ahead, swinging his massive axe in a deadly arc. 1 warrior ducked beneath the swing while the other leapt over it. The ducking warrior drove a short blue-black dagger into Magni's thigh. The weapon's edge burned like ice and fire simultaneously, making Magni howl with rage. Hephaestus's handiwork? The Greek smith sends his toys against me? Magni backhanded, the warrior, crushing his helmet and skull in one brutal motion. The body launched into ground several feet away, his flesh ripping against the harsh concrete. The warrior that had leapt up delivered a violent blow with his warhammer down onto Magni's head, causing it to temporarily blur his vision. Blood, actual God's blood, poured over his forehead. Magni's eyes narrowed with savage delight. "Finally! A real fight!" he cried out in confident anticipation. He whirled, decapitating one warrior with a horizontal swing, but the remaining 4 coordinated their attacks perfectly. A spear pierced his side while another warrior drove an axe into his calf. Magni roared and smashed his fist through one attacker's chest, ripping out organs and spine. 3 left. Come, show me what else the crippled smith has given you. The warriors circled, their weapons glowing with unnatural energies. One hurled his hammer that struck Magni's chest, releasing a burst of energy that staggered the god but exploded upon impact. Before he could recover, another warrior drove a sword through his shoulder, pinning him momentarily. Magni wrenched free and split the warrior from crown to groin with his axe, but his movements had slowed. Blue-black corruption spread from each, wound, weakening the mighty son of Thor. The final 2 warriors pressed forward. One drove a spear through Magni's knee, while the other slashed his weapon arm with a blade that burned with Greek fire. Magni fell to one knee, still grinning through, blood-stained teeth as his axe slipped from his numbing fingers. Impressive. He gasped as the warrior stood beside him, looking down. One warrior pressed a device to his ear while keeping his blade at Magni's throat. "Magni's secured. Send him in." "Secured?" Magni roared, his wounded pride more painful than his injuries. With a surge of divine strength, he grabbed the communicating warrior's ankle and yanked. The man crashed to the ground as Magni's massive hand closed around his head. "I am no prey to be put down like a dog," he snarled, crushing the warrior's skull with a sickening crunch. The last warrior quickly slashed upwards with his sword, severing the bicep tendon in the arm that the god used to crush his peer. Blood flowed freely from Magni's wounds, the strange blue-black corruption spreading through his veins. Magni's grip around the crushed head of the warrior immediately loosened. The god lifted himself up by his damaged legs, his right arm swaying freely at his side. Despite the god's injuries, he stood defiantly. "Come then, last of the ants, join your brothers." A sudden thunderclap split the air, but no lightning followed. Instead, a figure slammed into the ground between them, creating a crater in the asphalt. No pod, no vehicle, just raw impact. The dust cleared to reveal a muscular man with a close-cropped beard. His arms were covered in ancient Greek symbols, his chest bare except for a simple leather harness. "Your dad's looking for you, boy." Magni spat blood. Was the traitorous dog sent to finish me? Rage filled the eyes of the newly arrived god, his muscles tensing with the sight of the Norse god. Laughter belted from the wounded god, blood splattering the ground around him. To his side, the warrior began preparing a weapon from one of the pods, its energy pulsing with each new tech attached. "You are still crying over Theseus? You Greeks are so fucking pathetic," Magni said, blood still protruding from his wounds. His body began to fail him, his knees buckling from his own weight. The Greek god remembered seeing his brother laying in rot, his body abandoned and forgotten. The shame still burned deeply. "It was so easy," Magni said in a strained breath. "He deserved the death of a pig." A small tear formed in the eye of the standing Greek demigod. Though his face still showed anger, his fists tightened. With every spoken word, "Don't talk of him." "Valhalla calls me back again. Rejoice, son of Zeus," Magni said while reaching for his laying axe, his fingers struggling to regain its grip. "You aren't returning to Valhalla, Folkvang, or Helheim, Magni. After they are done, death is final. You will never fight again," he said while kicking the axe away from the Norse god. "No, wait. My weapon. I need my weapon." The first time witnessed by any mortal, there was a hint of fear in the eyes of a Norse god. Not for the Greek god's words, but for his legacy. The warrior aimed the weapon at Magni's chest, until he noticed the kicked axe. The warrior looked at the Greek god, and then retrieved the axe with his free hand while the railgun rested upon his shoulder. He then tossed the axe up and towards Magni. With Magni's last bit of strength, he reached up and caught the axe, but the moment he did, the warrior squeezed the trigger of the railgun without hesitation. The projectile tore through divine flesh, bone, and heart with a crack of displaced air. The breath of the god stolen from him from the heavy impact. Magni's body convulsed once, then went still, his eyes wide with shock and rage, fixed forever on the mortal who had ended a god. The Greek god looked back at the warrior with some disappointment before activating the communication device on his leather harness. "This is Hercules, target destroyed, 7 Thorkin operators down. We are clear for extraction," Hercules said. The clouds above erupted with a thunderous boom, several streaks of lightning cutting through the air with extreme intensity. "Thor is coming," Hercules finished while looking up at the sky. Enjoy next amazing story. The Divine. Steps to the celestial hall are covered by the bodies of beautiful young women with vibrant white wings stained by their blood. They lay motionless against the chipped marble steps, their once pristine forms now broken and discarded. Some look to have their wings violently ripped from their backs, leaving ragged flesh and exposed bone. Others had their bodies twisted. Unnaturally, limbs detached and scattered like abandoned dolls, though all had a common trait if inspected closely. Their eyes were blackened, their bodies cold as winter stone, and their faces frozen in expressions mingling with surprise, shock, and primal fear, the final emotions they experienced before death claimed them. A tremendous explosion reverberates from inside the large golden hall door, shaking the very foundations of the sacred place. Agonized screams and desperate yelling echo outward as if a major battle has commenced within the hallowed home of the gods. The sickening impact of flesh against stone repeats with terrible rhythm, and with each passing moment, the screaming and yelling gradually dissolves into an eerie silence. The massive doors of the hall explode outward in a shower of golden splinters, and the battered body of the man is violently propelled through the reinforced threshold. With a sudden, unnatural thud, his momentum halts abruptly, and he remains suspended in the air above the broken bodies of the Valkyries, blood dripping from his wounds to mingle with theirs. The man was alive and conscious, his eyes wide with pain, but his body was beaten and damaged grievously from the battles before bones visibly broken beneath bruised skin, armor shattered, and blood seeping from countless wounds. An unseen force suddenly yanked him back toward the threshold with the same brutal speed that had initially propelled him through the doors. A hooded figure standing in the shadowy entrance slowly brought his finger back toward himself, the subtle gesture somehow commanding the man's trajectory. The man's body slammed against the marble floor at the hooded figure's feet, blood spraying from his lips. Inside the celestial hall, carnage reigned. Dozens of divine bodies lay strewn across the golden chamber, their limbs twisted at impossible angles, thrones shattered, and celestial artifacts broken. Each fallen deity bore the same horrific marker, eyes blackened like burnt coals emptied of their divine light. "You?" The hooded figure wheezed, blood seeping through the fabric covering his chest. How can humanity make such a monster? 3 remaining gods stood behind the hooded figure, barely upright. A goddess with silver hair clutched a wound in her side that leaked golden ichor. Beside her, a broad-shouldered deity with a cracked stone face leaned heavily on a broken staff. The third, barely recognizable as divine with half his face melted away, trembled uncontrollably. The man spat blood onto the floor and smiled. "I'm the monster. Fuck you, Vaedrith." Around them lay the aftermath of divine slaughter, the throne of shattered gods, as mortals would later call it. Ornate columns had collapsed, the ceiling dome cracked open to reveal swirling storm clouds above. The man's handiwork was evident everywhere, gods of war, wisdom, and creation all reduced to empty vessels. The pantheon, destroyed by your hand. The silver-haired goddess stumbled forward. "Centuries of worship, millennia of power." "Power, you perverted," the man interrupted, struggling to his knees despite grievous wounds. "I simply returned it to its rightful place." The hooded figure raised a trembling hand, revealing blackened fingertips that matched the eyes of the fallen. "You've broken the cosmic balance. What you've done cannot be undone." "That was the point," the man replied, surveying his work with grim satisfaction. Divine weapons lay scattered among the bodies. Hammers, spears, and swords that had proven useless against him. White light flickered across the ruined hall as reality itself seemed to waver around them. The stone-faced god collapsed to one knee. "What are they without us?" he groaned. The man's eyes reflected the destruction he'd wrought. Free. The towering figure remained in his seat, slumped forward with his head bowed. Once the ruler of this divine realm, he now sat motionless among the wreckage of his pantheon. His magnificent crown hung askew, and his robe, once radiant with celestial light, was dulled with ash and blood. "Father," the silver-haired goddess pleaded, "help us destroy this abomination." The seated figure didn't respond, eyes fixed on the floor where the bodies of his divine children lay broken. A single tear traced down his ancient face. The stone-faced god roared and charged first, swinging his broken staff. "You dare defy us? We gave you fire, knowledge, civilization." The man caught the staff despite his battered state, yanking it forward. "You gave us nothing we didn't already possess, then demanded eternal gratitude." With a brutal twist, he drove, the staff's jagged end through the deity's throat, the same throat that had once dictated laws humans could never question. The stone god's face cracked like pottery as he fell, gasping commands that no one would ever obey again. The silver-haired goddess attacked next, her fingers elongating into razor-sharp talons. "We nurtured you, protected you. You harvested our worship while watching us suffer." The man caught her wrist and snapped it backward. She screamed as he drove her own hand into her chest. The goddess who had demanded sacrifice now sacrificed herself. The melted-faced god hurled celestial fire, scorching the hall's remains. Religion brought unity and order. The man staggered, through the flames, skin blistering, but stride unbroken. War and hate. He seized the god's throat, forcing the deity to swallow his own flames. The god who had burned heretics now burned from within, collapsing into cinders. Silvery mist rose. From each divine corpse, the man inhaled deeply, drawing the essence into himself. His broken bones realigned with sickening cracks. Lacerations sealed, bruises faded, and strength returned to his limbs. The hooded figure backed away. "Father, I can't stop him." The man rose to his full height, rejuvenated by the divine essence. The towering figure on the throne finally raised his head, eyes reflecting infinite sorrow as he witnessed the last of his children fall. The hooded figure's hands trembled as he summoned the last of his divine power. Ethereal chains materialized from the air, wrapping around the man's limbs and torso. "Leave this place!" The chains yanked violently, attempting to hurl the man back through the shattered doorway. The man's muscles strained against the restraints. His eyes flashed with an unnatural light, the stolen power of fallen gods now coursing through his veins. The chains stretched, then shattered like glass. "Your time is over," he growled. The hooded figure stumbled backward. "Brothers, sisters, Valkyries, assist me!" No response came from beyond the hall. The man advanced methodically. No more left. Desperate, the hooded figure hurled spears of divine light. The man deflected each with casual swipes of his hand, the energies dissipating against his skin. He closed the distance in 3 swift strides, seizing the figure's throat, for every prayer unanswered, for every child who starved while you feasted. The man's grip tightened. "For every war fought in your name." With a savage twist, the man snapped the deity's neck. The body convulsed as divine essence escaped in wisps of golden light. The man inhaled deeply, absorbing the power until the hooded figure was nothing but an empty husk. He dragged the corpse across the marble floor, leaving a trail of rapidly cooling ichor. At the foot of the great throne, he released his grip, letting the body fall with a hollow thud. The towering figure regarded the dead god, then fixed his ancient eyes on the man. "You claim to liberate them." The enthroned deity's voice resonated like distant thunder. "Yet you slaughter us and steal our essence. You become what you despise." The man stood unflinching. "My work isn't done." "Really?" The Ancient One gestured toward the carnage. "Look at yourself, drunk on power, dealing death from above. How are you different from us?" "I didn't start this war, you did. The moment you decided humanity existed to serve you." The towering figure leaned forward. "And what will you do with our power? Rule them as we did?" "No." The man's eyes burned with conviction. "I'll return what was stolen. Every drop of divine power, every answered prayer, every sacrifice demanded. It all belongs to humanity. It always did. Such hypocrisy. You kill gods in order to become a god." The Ancient One's voice held no anger, only profound weariness. "You become the very monster you sought to slay." "It's different this time," the man said, a hint of doubt apparent in his voice. The towering figure rose from his throne, his movements slow yet deliberate. Despite his weakened state, his presence still commanded the ruined hall. "You speak of freedom while planning to rebuild the very system you destroyed." His voice echoed with ancient wisdom. "A different master is still a master." The man's jaw tightened. "I'll give them choice." "As we once did." The Ancient One stepped closer. "We were not always tyrants. We began as liberators too, champions of humanity who ascended to guide them. Power corrupts, mortal, even yours." "I'm different." "Are you?" The towering figure's eyes reflected millennia of watching civilizations rise and fall. "Already you've decided what's best for them without asking. Already you've killed to impose your vision." The man's hands trembled, not from weakness, but from rage. "Stop talking. The truth hurts, doesn't it?" The Ancient One circled him. "You'll become worse than us because you know better and choose this path anyway. Your revolution will become religion. Your freedom will become doctrine." "Enough." The man lunged forward, channeling the power he'd absorbed from the hooded figure. Divine energy surged through his veins as he seized the towering figure by his ornate robes. With strength that could move mountains, he hurled the ancient deity across the hall. The towering figure crashed through 3 marble columns before slamming into the far wall. Golden ichor sprayed across pristine surfaces as his body crumpled to the floor. Unlike the others, he made no move to defend himself. "Fight back!" the man roared, stalking toward his fallen adversary. The towering figure merely looked up, his ancient eyes filled not with fear but with something worse, understanding. "No," he said simply. Fury overtook the man. He summoned the stolen abilities of the gods he'd slain, fire from the war deity, lightning from the storm goddess, crushing gravity from the earth god. He unleashed them all upon the towering figure, who remained motionless as the elements tore at his divine form. The hall shook with the force of the assault. Pillars collapsed around them as the ceiling fractured further. The man pulled reality itself apart, warping the space around the towering figure until his body began to twist unnaturally. He knelt beside the towering figure, whose form was now barely recognizable, torn and twisted by the man's assault. Still, those ancient eyes remained clear, watching him without judgment. "I knew you would come one day," the towering figure whispered. "I've seen this moment since the beginning." The man placed his palm against the deity's chest, drawing the last and most powerful divine essence into himself. The towering figure didn't resist as his life force flowed outward, emptying into his killer. "Your reign ends here," the man declared. "Yes," the towering figure replied with his final breath. "Mine ends, yours begins. They will call you God." The deity's eyes darkened like all the others, and his body collapsed into dust along with the rest of the bodies around him. The man stood alone among the ruins of heaven, the power of every god now contained within his mortal frame. "Things will be different," he muttered to the empty throne room. "I'll make it different." The man stood among the ruins of divinity, power thrumming through his veins like liquid starlight. The essence of God swirled within him, seeking form and purpose. He extended his hands, and cosmic energy spiraled between his fingers, coalescing into something new. The energy took shape. First a skeletal frame of pure light, then muscle and sinew woven from the fabric of reality itself. A face emerged, noble and severe, with eyes that reflected the depths of time. The figure before him solidified, gaining substance and weight until it stood taller than any mortal man. Its skin shimmered with the metallic gleam of bronze, veins pulsing with golden ichor. A mane of silver hair cascaded down its back, and a beard of the same hue framed its stern countenance. "Rise," the man commanded, and the being opened its eyes, endless pools of swirling chronology, where past and future existed simultaneously. The creation knelt before its maker, awaiting purpose. "I'll name you Kronos," the man declared, "time incarnate. You will be the first of a new pantheon, one that serves humanity rather than ruling it." Kronos tilted his head, examining his creator with timeless eyes. "And what shall I call you, father of gods?" The man looked around at the celestial devastation. He had wrought at the empty thrones and shattered crowns. He had torn down heaven itself, only to find himself standing in its place. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Uranos," he answered. "I am Uranos. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.